Welcome back. Football Hall of Famer Brett Favre continues facing criticism after text messages showed a former Mississippi governor helped Favre obtain welfare funding to use for a university sports stadium. The texts were made public as part of an ongoing civil lawsuit filed by the state to get back that money. Now the question turns to whether Favre could be charged in connection with that scam. NewsNation correspondent Paul Gerke is live. And Paul, of course, this is also about his reputation.
Nichole, it really is the legacy he leaves behind. But public sentiment right now of Brett Favre has reached the point where Jeff Pearlman, who wrote a comprehensive biography of the NFL icon, has called Favre's actions monstrous. He tweeted a picture of a number 4 jersey burning in a trash can, even going as far as telling people not to read his book, which paints Favre in a largely positive light. Opinions are one thing. But the question remains, is Favre actually on the hook for any sort of legal wrongdoing? Well, as it turns out, he might actually be in some hot water.
At a minimum, this is extraordinarily bad publicity for Brett Favre.
Mitchell Epner is an attorney who specializes in white-collar crime. The possibility that Favre may have misused even a penny of Mississippi's limited welfare funds calls to mind a 4-letter word.
It's just ugly.
But ugly does not always equate to legal culpability. So far, the former Packers quarterback has not been charged with any wrongdoing for his involvement in a scheme that funneled at least $5 million of welfare funding toward constructing a volleyball complex at the University of Southern Mississippi.
But if I were Brett Favre's attorney, I would tell him that he has serious criminal exposure, which is different than liability. Exposure means you might be charged.
In order to charge him, Epner says the feds would need to look at 2 things. Did Favre know he was part of a fraudulent scheme? And did anybody use mail, wires, or a phone to forward it? These texts filed in a Mississippi civil case answer the second question. Favre tells the director of the nonprofit blamed with misusing tens of millions, the governor has seen the proposal, but hint, hint, you need to reword it to get it accepted. Later adding, I really feel like he is trying to figure out a way to get it done without actually saying it, Favre says of former Governor Phil Bryant. In another text, Favre asked the director of the nonprofit, if you were to pay me, is there any way the media can find out where it came from and how much?
They're extraordinarily bad facts. To be very blunt, if he were to be charged, his best defense would be, I'm Brett Favre.
That defense might carry weight in his native Mississippi, but not at a federal level. There's a 20-year statutory max sentence for wire and mail fraud, but Epner says that would not be relevant in Favre's case if he's ultimately charged. But still,
But in a world where he were eventually found guilty, even under a lenient plea agreement, he would be looking at many years in jail.
To this point, Favre has repaid $1 million in the welfare funding he received, but still owes the state $228,000 in interest. Now, the federal statute of limitations to charge Favre with a crime in this instance is only 5 years. The first known contact in this case was back in 2017, so you'd think they'd have to act quickly. But something I learned today, Nichole, is that statute of limitations applies to whenever the scheme concludes, not when it began. So the feds still have years to figure this out and potentially hold Brett Favre accountable. Nichole?
All right, Paul Gerke live for us. Thank you. And with more on what this could mean for Brett Favre's legacy, both on and off the field, we're joined by Andrew Brandt, a former NFL executive with the Packers. Andrew, thanks so much for being with us. You know, we know you worked closely with Favre when you were both with Green Bay. Do you think this could ultimately tarnish his legacy, both as, of course, an NFL great, but also as one of Mississippi's most famous sons?
Yeah, this is conflicting for me, obviously. I knew him for 10 years. Very likable guy, very popular with the team, very popular with the league. He was one of the faces of the league. He was certainly the face of the Green Bay Packers, and he drove our product, and we were one of the most popular teams in the NFL and still are. So it's tough to see this. We never saw anything like this. I did not when he was with the team. But this is not a good look, and it paints him in a bad light. And certainly there's shame and public shaming in the court of public opinion, as we're talking about now, and everyone's talking about it. In terms of league-wide and lasting legacy, we're just going to have to see. These things tend to have a life of its own. He's in the media himself, Brett, doing stuff for Sirius Radio and others. He can rehabilitate this over time, but we probably need to hear from him.
Yeah.
We need to hear his side of the story, and we'll see if that comes.
Well, Andrew, as you said, everybody is talking about it, but so far, the league is keeping quiet on this issue. Do you think that's the right move?
Technically, he's not an NFL player. He hadn't played in a long time, so I guess technically they don't have to look into this. But this is someone they hold out as one of their stars. Obviously, you saw the pictures of his yellow jacket, the Hall of Fame, one of the best players in history. So I think we're going to hear a lot more about this from the parties that need to address it. Brett Favre, his people, his agent, his lawyers, what the state of Mississippi's involvement in this. And we're going to hear. And then, of course, the NFL is going to have to weigh in. And maybe they say it's a private matter of someone that's not playing anymore. But I think they're going to need to weigh in as well.
All right. So saying that we'll hear more from the people, the entities directly involved in this. We know Favre is paying back the money, has paid back the money, still needs to pay that interest. But Andrew, do you think he should be doing more?
He needs to pay the interest. We need to hear that if this was diverted from public funds to go to the poorest people in the poorest state, that's a problem because forget about the NFL and forget about the Packers. He's a favored son in Mississippi. And this is dealing with his own state, his own people. His favored son status could be in jeopardy. So I think that's the way he needs to handle it, starting with obviously his own family, but his bigger family. The whole state of Mississippi, they revere Brett Favre. I've been down there, I've seen it. And we'll see if that affects that status and how he handles it going forward.
Yeah, we will certainly see. Andrew Brandt, we thank you so much for speaking with us.
Happy to do it, thanks.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.